Welcome to Forum 360, generously sponsored by the Knight Foundation and the Jewish Community Board of Akron on Fusion, your PBS channel. I'm Stephanie York, your host today. Thank you for joining us for a global outlook with a local view. Today we are talking with one of the nation's leading authorities in high-risk workplace and human resource issues, and prominent security expert Tim Dimoff, president of SACS Consulting and Investigative Services, about personal safety. In a time where companies, schools, churches, and synagogues have regular active shooter trainings for their employees, students and clergy who is looking out for your personal safety? Who is protecting you when you are shopping, learning, and praying? These are questions and more that will be answered by our guest today, Tim Dimoff, who had dedicated his entire career to public and personal safety, first as a first responder SWAT team leader, and now as an expert in workplace safety. And today, he is talking to us about personal safety. Thank you, Tim, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you ended up as president of SACS Security and Investigative Services.
Of course, and it's an interesting story. I mean, who would know? I graduated from college, started applying, and get on the Akron Police Department, and I was all excited, and it was a great opportunity and a great memory and experience. So right out of college, 6 months later, got into law enforcement, and my whole life as a kid I wanted to be a police officer, and I really wanted to make a difference, and I watched all the TV shows. So joined the Akron Police and went through all the different types of experiences, trainings, and really got a really good wide base of information and knowledge. And the other thing I did is I was a sponge for knowledge. So I went to every training that they offered. I paid for some of it was paid by the department. And 20 years in law enforcement with the Akron Police and the Federal Task Force, I got to experience patrol, high crimes unit, SWAT team. I was a first entry person. I had 167 one-on-one armed confrontations I had to deal with. You learn a lot about people in those situations. Went undercover narcotics, took over, and then ran a narcotic division, and then went to the Federal Task Force. And after that, 20 years on the private side. Might as well take all that knowledge and bring it with you, because I really wanted to help the general public, the day-to-day people in different scenarios, schools, churches, houses of worship, businesses, campus. I needed to bring that knowledge to people every day because aggression was skyrocketing.
It is, and we're certainly glad that you have transferred your knowledge into this sector and you're helping the everyday people, and that's why we're here talking today. So you're on TV and radio a lot, especially after a large incident, whether it's an active shooter or a computer hacking, which happened recently in our city, or other large safety breach. How did that evolve?
Well, that evolved because what we did is on the private side, we put together actually one of the what we call premier or very in-depth research teams at our business. So we became a very strong research type of company, and not just locally, but on a national basis. I can share my research, I can share our knowledge and stuff, and and certain entities in the government, and they're all doing a great job, they're a little more restricted in what they can share for certain circumstances, and we're not. So we decided, let's do our own independent. And what happened was we researched and did interviews concerning over 600 active shooters in the last 17 years, 600 active shooter incidents. And we also researched and did interviews for over 1,500 aggressive acts of aggression and threats in the workplace, schools, and churches. And we're constantly researching. Our team is made up of ex-military, military intelligence, law enforcement, federal agents, narcotics, detectives, and professional security, and then add in the human resource element. We developed a unique situation, took all that knowledge, and we want to share it. Where's the best place to share it? Through the media. And we let the media know we have this, will share it with you. And of course, you know, your involvement with the media, they're going to be very, very receptive to that type of specialized research and experience. And that's what we're about. Knowledge is the king to safety.
And that's why we're here today. I know you help a lot of companies, schools, and religious institutions with their security needs. But we're going to talk a little more about personal safety today. What can I do if I find myself in a situation where maybe others are trained already and I'm not? For instance, a couple months back, there was a active shooter or a shooting at Beechwood Mall in the food court. And I happen to have a very good friend who was at the mall that day. And the stores all shut their doors. You know, they put the gates down and everybody, they corralled everybody to the back of the store. Presumably they hid somewhere. I'm not sure, because my friend was in the corridor. But what does somebody in the corridor do? Do they run and hide? Do they try to leave? Do they play dead? I mean, tell me, what does somebody like that do?
Well, let's back up. And the first thing everybody needs to do, no matter where you are, and I did a educational spot for about, if you're in a restaurant and something happens, if you're, obviously if you're in a mall or a store or a school, here's the first thing. Wherever you go, no matter what it is, baseball game, football game, a concert, a restaurant, a mall, first thing we have to do that you and I did not have to do as kids is you need to go in wherever you are and you need to walk around and educate and learn where the multiple exits and entrances are, okay? And you know, people go, every time? I go, every time. I go to a ball game in Cleveland, I go to a concert, I go to a restaurant. I take 2 minutes, I walk around, and I become familiar with alternative exits and entrances. Why? Because under stress is not the time to start discovering where I can go for safety and security. So number one, if we just practice with ourselves and our family, exits, where the multiple exits are, you will be surprised. Under stress, the answer is you want to get away from the aggressor and the aggression that's going on.
Okay.
But you got to know where your alternatives are, because maybe that aggressor is between me and you right now and the only door over there that we know exists. But if I know there's a door there and there's a door here and I can walk through this store and there's an exit there, under stress, I'll successfully get out of there quicker, safer, and better, and my loved ones will be with me. So the number one thing is know your territory, entrance and exits.
That's really important. When do you suggest start to tell your kids about things like that? Different exits.
I've got a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a grandson, and took him to Progressive Field, and I said, Kellen, if me and you lose Grandpa, we got to know where you're going to find me. He says, okay. I walk him down the corridor of Progressive Field out to the back gate where the big statues are, and I take him and I said, anything happens, you get to this statue and you meet your grandpa where the big guy is, okay? And he said, okay. Now, the next time we were there, imagine a 5-year-old. I said, okay, Kellen, if something happens to Grandpa and you and there's noise and guns and bombs and a fire, whatever, where are you going to go? He says, I'm going to the big guy. I said, take me there. Okay. And he did. Imagine a 5-year-old took me to where the big guy was. So
it's never too early to start?
Unfortunately, it's never too early. Have a game plan, and it works.
Okay, so I'm walking to my car at the mall. This happens all the time, and I have my keys in my hand with a little key part sticking out just in case, right? Because that's what you're told to do from when you're little. What else can I do to tell others that I'm not a person to be messed with?
Okay, that's a great question, and the number one thing we want to do in those situations, whether you're male, female, young, or old, is you want to not look like a victim, okay? A victim is someone that walks out of the mall, takes short steps, is looking down at the ground, or is locked in on their phone, okay? So being locked in on your phone is not the thing to be. Looking like a victim is someone that has narrow vision of what they're doing and how they're walking. They're walking not with confidence, they're looking down or locked in on their phone. What you want to do is walk upright. You want to look around constantly, because criminals know that they want to have the element of surprise. If you're looking around and you're walking strong, as we call it, it don't matter if you're 80 years old, you're not going to be picked as a victim. Why? You just look too strong, too challenging, and they can't sneak up on you because you're seeing this. So don't look like a victim. And we call that situational 360-degree awareness. Be aware of everything around you. Get to your car. Yes. Once you're at your car, get in your car. Don't start it first. Lock your doors first.
Okay.
Then, now you start your car and you do whatever you want to do. That will give you security.
That's great. And I do feel sometimes that I do that, but sometimes I feel maybe if I'm on the phone, and maybe this is the wrong thing to do, there's somebody at least on the phone with me, so if something happens, like if I'm really scared, I have somebody that will know to call. Is that a good idea or not? Because you want to...
Okay, there's nothing wrong, and I have a lot of people that put something on the phone that says, I'm leaving my work, it's late at night, I'm leaving a store, I'm a little nervous.
Right.
I'm going to put you on the phone before I start walking. When you're walking with someone on the phone, put them on speaker.
Nice.
And be carrying the phone where they can hear you from this distance and you're not here or here. So you carry the phone with them on the speaker, and what are you doing as you're talking? You're looking around. Great idea.
That's good.
Speaker phone, not the quiet phone.
Right, so I had the great idea, but I wasn't executing it properly.
Yeah,
so,
one more little thing.
Yes, good, good. So let's switch gears a little. I've been going through other scenarios I was reading about, and I read this disturbing article about how easy it is for establishments to secretly tape you. How little are cameras these days, and where can they put them? Let's start with that. How little are cameras?
Cameras are so little anymore, very tiny, very little. So you can hide a lot of what we call pinhole cameras.
Okay. Just
about anywhere. Yes, cameras are hidden everywhere, can be hidden everywhere. So there's no doubt about that.
Okay, so if go to a hotel or an Airbnb or other establishment, what can I do to make sure I'm not being secretly taped? Where should I look? And if I believe I'm being taped, what should I do?
Yeah, well, number one, you can look around the room, and this is, this is difficult. You can put a pinhole camera in a smoke detector. You can put it in an alarm clock. You can put it in all sorts of things that have that. Basically, one thing you can do, and a lot of people are starting to do, is they're buying little gadgets off the internet that basically you can buy, and they have a battery, or you can plug them in, and they can pick up and detect a signal. Oh. Okay? So becoming sophisticated, we have people that are taking stuff, and they're taking electronic detectors. So, and they walk around the room with it, and they see if they get a signal that there's a camera. If you're that paranoid and you want something, and I understand, I got 2 daughters and a son and my wife, and I'm preaching to them about everything that we're talking about.
Right.
And with technology, it's just harder and harder and harder. But remember, for every technology out there that's used against us in a criminal or a mischievous way, there's technology to tell us it exists.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. Thank you. I'd like to remind our viewers and those who may have joined late that we are here with Tim Dimoff, President of SACS Security and Investigative Services, and we are discussing personal safety. How can you be safe on a daily basis while going about your day? So no company, government, school, or organization is safe from a computer hacker, right? I mean, it's not if you're going to be hacked, it's when you're going to be hacked at some point. And most recently, the city of Akron got hacked, and the hackers asked for a ransom. But the city smartly backs up their computer every single day on a remote source, so they can just recreate it, and they don't need to pay the ransom in order to get access to their files again. So thank goodness they do that. But what do I do if I'm at home and I get all of a sudden my computer freezes up and somebody comes on or a message comes on and says you need to pay $3,000 in order to get access back to your computer? Yes. Do I call the police? Do I take my computer to Best Buy and have the Geek Squad come in and service it? Do I pay the ransom? What do I do?
Ironically, the majority of people at this point are paying ransoms.
Wow.
Now, you don't have to do that, and the first thing you do is you do the same as any other big organization. Back up all your stuff in your home some simple way, a disk or a thumb drive. Just back up your stuff on a regular basis. If obviously not every day, but maybe once a week. Back your stuff up, you get the ransomware, then you don't have to worry about it. I mean, backing up your systems, both personally and professionally, eliminates that whole problem totally. We have a lot of people paying ransomware because the ransom amount is so low. It's not worth the hassle, and
right.
and the headaches. So once again, you're in a bad position. If you don't want to pay the ransomware, number one, make sure that your camera is always covered, because cameras can be accessed remotely, especially with hackers and stuff, and if they've downloaded stuff. So first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you block your camera, and you should block your camera all the time except when you're using it.
Really?
Like on a Skype or something, because someone could hack your computer and reverse it to just observe you and other things going on. So
okay, so now I'm really creeped out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and put a piece of tape on it.
Just put a piece of tape, and they make little covers for them.
Wow.
So always cover your camera, even on your laptops or your Surface Pros, your carries. You should always block your camera. So that's number one. Number two is back it up all the time so you don't have that headache. And three is, if you don't want to pay it, obviously contact a professional to come and deal with the situation, and don't do anything to your computer. Don't try to hit buttons and figure out, and all that. And don't even turn it off. Just leave it like it is and let a professional come in there and see what they can do.
Are you finding if people pay the ransomware, they get their stuff back, or are people paying the ransomware and not getting their stuff back?
Right now, the badge of code in the black market of hacking is that their credibility is to give the data back.
Wow.
Because imagine if people started saying, yeah, I paid, and I didn't get it back, ransomware would go out of business.
Right.
So their actual biggest kind of code of their illegal ethics is to make sure you give that data to the people, because if not, it ruins, and they pump out hundreds of thousands of these ransomwares per day, per hour.
Wow.
And they hit people for all sorts of different types of unique situations. And you get all sorts of things that they come after you on.
So their customer reviews would be always gives their
Always
information
delivers.
back, always delivers.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
It's
but
amazing.
I understand the theory behind it, because no one would pay, and that'd be it.
And their fees are smaller, so it's affordable enough, quote unquote, that even businesses, small businesses are getting hit more. They're paying a couple $1,000s. It ain't worth it.
Wow.
Now, next time they learn, back it up, you know, and it ain't hard to back your system up.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about home safety. Are home alarm systems a good thing, or can somebody easily hack them and get into your house, or is it a good deterrent just to have one of those signs?
All the above. It's great to have a sign. It's good to have a home alarm system. And, we now are entering the new term is the Internet of Things, okay? And the Internet of Things is the fact that every appliance, everything in your house has a connection to the computer, or could. You get a refrigerator, it talks to you about the temperature, when you're low on food, everything, you know, about it. It can connect to your cell phone, to your home computer. Your cameras can connect to your phone, you know, your dishwasher, your stove, your lights, everything. Now, with the Internet of Things, you want to make sure when you get an appliance, anything that comes to your house, cameras, appliances, anything that has a Internet of Things with the Wi-Fi, that you do not use the default connection for that. The refrigerator will come with a default password, a default connection. You want to go in, which is very easily, if you're going to use that stuff, you want to cancel out the default and you want to create your own new connection and password. Reason being, all those Internet of Things, those passwords and connections are publicly accessible records. They're out there. And if you know what you're doing and you're in that business, it's very easy to go and get all the passwords that are going out to the last 100 refrigerators that came from a store. So the Internet of Things is another whole challenge, but once again, you need new passwords on that, and you need to control it.
Yeah, that's great. Are there personal safety classes you put on or can recommend for people to take? And are these worthwhile, or do you think they give people a false sense of security? Because, I mean, how are you going to really fight off a gun? Or what do you think?
Well, we, in the last probably 3 years, have seen an extreme larger demand to our company for practical security. We've created a couple programs called Street Smarts. And Street Smarts is all about training employees. And what we do is we take them from walking out of their house into their car, driving their car, parking their car, getting out of their car to go to work, going into work, walking the hallway, in an elevator, end of the day, leaving, coming back, going shopping on the way.
Everything we've talked about,
everything.
Really.
And it's basically a basic thing called Street Smarts. We also do the 360-degree situational awareness. But those type of classes we offer, others offer it. You can look up on the internet, personal safety in that, and you can get a checklist of smart things to do, just things that we were talking about here. You know, like walking to your car and parking your car, and if you're parking it in a parking deck versus a parking lot, in the day versus the night, you know, all that. And there is a lot of practical advice out there, and this practical advice is based on what the criminals in prisons are telling us that they're looking for in a victim. So it's not rocket science. You know what it is? We have to change our habits compared to what we did when we were kids. And our kids have to learn new habits that they aren't used to learning yet. So it's all there.
And so that goes to my next question. Do you think the world is more dangerous now than it was when you were growing up?
Oh, absolutely. When I was a kid, I went down to a park. We lived right across from a park. Me and my brother got up, ate breakfast, jumped on our bikes, went to the park. No phones, no nothing. My mom said, you know, come home for lunch. We'd come home for lunch. We'd leave for lunch, come home for dinner. Get from dinner, we'd leave. And the proverbial for anybody 50 and older was, you make sure you get home when the street lights come on. And that's what our alarm system was street lights. And you know what? My parents didn't have to worry about me and my brother being alone at a park. How many parents would let their kids go alone to a park today? You know,
you wouldn't.
It's the difference. And take it further, other things that you do. You want to know who you're with, where you're going, check in. You know, the cell phones are good because your kids can check in, you can check in with them. But yes, is the world more dangerous? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. You went to school, in grade school and high school. You didn't have to worry about a guy coming there with a gun. You know, these are all the examples that we use. You went to church. You didn't have to worry about someone with a gun, someone with a difference. And the problem here is abnormal behavior has now become the norm in many cases, and we're dealing with people that are acting in abnormal, aggressive ways. So we have to be more diligent.
I have a lot more questions, and we're not going to be able to get to them. I'm really sorry. Our time is running short. So thank you for joining us on Forum 360, sponsored by the Knight Foundation and the Jewish Community Board of Akron on Fusion, your PBS channel. Today we learned how to protect ourselves if we were caught in a high-risk, dangerous situation. We learned what to do if we are a customer and there's an active shooter. We learned how to protect ourselves against and deal with a cyber attack on our home computer. And we even learned how to guard ourselves against everyday street crime. The dangers are real, and as we learned, you don't have to be caught unprepared. We talked with Tim Dimoff, president of SACS Consulting and Investigative Services, and an expert in workplace safety and human resource issues. He gave us great tips on how to anticipate volatile conditions, what to look for when entering an establishment, and sizing up the place, really, every time you go, anywhere, and how to react should we find ourselves in a dangerous situation. Thank you, Tim, for joining us today, and thank you for all you do to keep our community and the people that live there safe. It really was an eye-opening discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie, for getting this out. This is important. Knowledge is king.
Forum 360 is brought to you by Electrical Impulse Communications, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, an anonymous donor, the Jewish Community Board of Akron, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Blue Green, and Forum 360 supporters.